back to Beyond the Quo, where we break boundaries, redefine success, and inspire leaders to live authentically and boldly. I'm your host, Stacey Luces, and today I'm joined by Arielle Leavitt, a trailblazer who took her family's struggling business from the brink of failure to thriving success. But that was only the beginning. She's since created the Ripple networking app, which I'm so excited for her to share more about that with us. And her goal is to kind of redefine how we build relationships and lead lives that are rooted in community and connection. So whether you're an entrepreneur, a founder, a leader, or simply looking to level up your life, her story is going to inspire you to break the status quo and create meaningful impact. And contact. See how I did that? Yeah. Welcome, Arielle. How are you?
Hi. Oh my gosh, thank you for having me here.
I'm so excited.
As you're reading that, I'm just like, gosh, you summarized my life so well. Can you just walk around with me? Can I just have you?
I'm going to sit in your back pocket.
Yeah.
As I was kind of reading your bio and your notes for the show, I was like, what's a good hook? What do I use to open? And I think the word appropriately so that I think about when I think about you is connection. And I know that's been kind of your thing and a brand that you've been, whether you were conscious about it or not, it has been such a big part of you in the time that I've known you. And we've known each other for, 5, 6, maybe 7 years now. But tell me why connection means so much to you, especially one of the statistics I was reading is that even though we're so quote unquote connected, more and more people are suffering from loneliness.
That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think 2020 was a time where people were very lonely. And I think that showed a lot of people that they can't be alone. They need community and connection. And it's so important for us to have community and connection as human beings. Our souls literally, it's food. It's food for our souls. Our bodies need water, air and food. But we as souls.
Our spirits,
need connection to live and thrive. Depression is a killer, unfortunately. And so all we can do is just connect with others, and common interests are connections. That's where it starts. So community starts with common interests, and community starts with connection. And so we need to connect on common interests. And that's all you're looking for in communities. Communities, most people when they move down, they join a church or a religious.
Of course. You find something in common.
Yeah. And so, I think it's so fascinating because I think of Swifties, for example. I know this is such a...
Yeah.
But, Swifties only have Taylor Swift in common, pretty much, right? But yet they are bonded and they are to the core.
But I think some of it is not only her, but it's what her music evokes in us, right? Mm-hmm. And from my generation, I'll just date myself. Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, we still hear them, and it still evokes that feeling of not only nostalgia, but romance or girl power, right? If they were saying a really poppy, but I'm every woman, whatever. So I think that Taylor does span a couple generations, right?
Yeah.
But I do feel maybe the connection is really, what is it evoking in me that I'm missing? And then how do I connect with it via the meetup, the networking event, right? The chat, the coffee chat or whatever, to recreate that either need, right? Whether it's a need for, I know new moms, they have new moms group, Baby and I or whatever, stuff like that. But I love the fact that you're kind of taking it deeper than just the business aspect. And I really love that about the work that you do. I really love that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And it's also connection is uplifting, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we seek connection for, is that uplifting. So when we leave a meeting with you and I together, I feel so energized.
And we can't shut up.
Exactly. But I feel like I love meeting with you because I know I'm so energized, and I love introducing you to other people because I know they'll get that same feeling when they leave you.
Yeah.
And so I want to spread that around. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah. There's this quote, we all know it, your vibe attracts your tribe. And I think that goes both ways. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like sometimes when we are around people, even if we're not having the best day and they're like pumped and excited to see you, like immediately, like your frequency goes up. So I love that. So we got a little bit ahead of ourselves. I had like a whole thing planned out here and we just jumped right in.
Keep me on course. I have like ADD, so I'm like all over the place. And yeah.
I remember when we first met, and you're, not to put you in a spot, but how old are you? Like,
I'm 34.
Okay. So I'm about 10 years ahead of you. And when we met a couple of years ago, what struck me was both kind of you being younger, but also very mature. And when you told me your story about your dad's passing and sort of the weight of that business falling on your shoulders and kind of how you had to level up, and I got to know your story, one, I was super impressed, but two, it was very inspiring. And now that you have two businesses and you've got quite a number of things going on, for people like, you know, stuck in the quo, stuck in their status quo, what type of temperament through grief, because sometimes grief stalls us, but what type of temperament and what type of fortitude does it take to not only marshal your emotions around losing somebody imperative in your life, but carrying on their legacy and putting your own spin on it?
Yeah, it's a very interesting feeling of that happening. I was actually speaking with somebody this morning, and I was telling her, like, when I took over the business, my father had a stroke, and so I took over the business, and it was not good financially.
Remind us how old you were.
So I was, oh, thank you. So I was 22 at the time. Wow. Yeah. And I was just getting ready to graduate college. Like, and I thought I'd just work for my dad a little bit or whatever, or help out in the family business, because my family just is very family oriented. And maybe that's where I took a lot of my community part of it, because we help each other. And community does, like, and that's like, as a family, like, we were never allowed allowance because my mom said, why am I going to pay you for something that we do together? And we're going to help each other. So you're going to help me do the dishes, and you're going to help me mop the floors or whatever, and I'll help you with your homework, or I'll help you with that. And that just stuck with me for the rest of my life. And that's what carries me forward with everything. So I'm like, why wouldn't we all just help each other? And it's an exchange, right? It's an energy exchange. It's like money absolutely. Or whatever. Like, it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
And if you want to call it karma, whatever, right? Like, on a different scale with other people, like in business, I'll just help people. They're like, why are you helping me? And I'm like, well, I'm just, because I'm happy to, right? Like, because I know eventually you'll help me, and we'll work together. And, you know, or maybe you won't help me directly, but you'll know somebody who can help me. And so anyway, so I was 22 and I was getting ready to graduate college, and I was like, my dad was going through this bad breakup. A lot of money was stolen. He didn't want to talk about it much because talking about financial stuff is very embarrassing. And he wanted to keep it up in appearance, and he didn't want people to know that we were really struggling at the time. And so he had a stroke, and I stepped in and I just started running the business, because that's what we do as family, right? We just help each other out. So I was like, I'll help out, continue the business, kind of running it or figure it out. And when he's able to come back to practice, he'll come back to practice. And so a year turned into another year and another year. And keeping it alive. And my mom helped me and until the point where she's a dental hygienist, and she got busier with her thing. And I always say it's like divine intervention. Like, she got busier at her dentistry office, and I was able and ready to hire somebody to help me at the front desk. So it was interesting, like, timing of everything. But it was a hard thing because I didn't know what I was doing.
Did imposter syndrome come in?
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh. Great. Yeah.
Like, especially if you were like talking to people, quote unquote, older than you, not necessarily wiser, but you know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. And nobody wanted to take me serious. And I still thank those attorneys and doctors that did take me serious at that time and saw through my BS or whatever it was, or, you know, my stuff.
Hyper bravado.
Yes. And I was like, so grateful. And years later, I've, you know, continued to thank them. We have great relationships. And, but yeah, it was a scary thing. And I had no idea. I knew how to bill and schedule, but I didn't know like some of the terms and terminology of things. And so it's so funny. Like, one of the person, I remember this other doctor in the office one time, he was like, hey, can you find out what this, and this is? And I was like, yeah. And I would report back to him and tell him like, oh, I found out what I had no idea. Yes. And I'm not a researcher really either. Yeah. This is so embarrassing, you guys. I should like probably not be like, but now I do know. I swear.
No, but it matters, right? And this brings me back to when I was 32. I got a leadership role at the Department of Homeland Security. And my boss at the time, phenomenal leader, he was a big deal in the Navy, retired from the Navy and was now working for the Department of Homeland Security. And they wanted to stand up 7 executive steering committees, which were run by the most senior leaders across the country of these programs, these multi-million-dollar programs. And he said, you have to create charters for each of these 7 steering committees led by these very important people. And oh, by the way, you also have to get the other stakeholders, some of who had competing interests, to sign the charter, that they would all work together. Here were the rules of the road. You had to create kind of the communication strategy for all of these 7 things. And I went home and I totally cried. Like 32 years old, I was a new mom, right? Alyssa was maybe 18 months, 2 years. And I had this feeling, much like you're describing, of not fake it till I make it, but whatever it took for me to like get through the next day is what I did during that day. Because sometimes you can't like do the long-term planning. You got to just paddle so the boat doesn't like sink, right? And it was such a good reminder that, and I think, and tell me, I'm saying this because I want to know if we have a similarity and we can tease out a lesson here for some other people who think they're unprepared for a role. I think because I was so young and because I was so not naive, but not as jaded, like the more seasoned people were. And I had this sense of enthusiasm and this curiosity about, oh my God, I'll figure it out. It actually made me successful in a way that maybe if I were more risk adverse, I would have maybe not tried different things.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think it's also like the willingness to learn, right?
Yeah.
I didn't come in with an attitude.
And to mess up and be okay with people are not going to hold that against you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
And owning it, right? And like you mess up, you own it.
Yeah.
And
you get back on the saddle real quick.
Yeah.
Dust off.
You apologize for whatever mess up happens and you get on, and you're like, great, I won't do that again.
Yeah.
And but it's so true. I think that's what you just said. I was like loving like what you just touched on there. And I think it's important to just do it. Like they say, like fake it until you make it or whatever.
But be earnest in your desire to learn.
Yeah.
From other people, right? Like I think the earnestness and sometimes when we're younger, that comes more naturally. That almost in a sense about, oh, I didn't know that. And so it takes down a lot of the barriers. There's this dude, you probably see him on Instagram where he just sticks a mic in like people that look rich, like their faces. And he's like, have you ever been broke? And then they start talking all this magic about they're billionaires or millionaires. I mean, one of them I think was Marc Jacobs. And like, I don't know where he finds these people, but it astounds me how much their barriers lower when he says, I'm just a young guy just trying to help people understand what it takes to do what you do. Like you totally see the walls coming down. And I think you have that about you. Help people bring their walls down because we get to the vulnerability quicker and the solution faster.
Yeah, but it's also about learning your own vulnerability.
For sure.
In the beginning, I thought everything had to be perfect.
Yeah.
And I thought like I had to put on this perfect show for everybody and like, trust me, I can do it. Like, and I think they like felt that nervous energy from me, right?
Yeah.
And
that's how I feel sometimes about podcasting. Because I'm still new and you're seasoned, but you get comfortable doing it. Oh, repetition is the mother of all skill, right?
Totally.
Yeah, I love that. Tell me about the relationship with your mom.
Oh.
Both as when you stepped into that role so young and, I watch you two now and you're like simpatico, right? But was there ever any tension with the way that you want to do things versus the way that your dad did things? And she always seems supportive, and I truly believe she always has been. But tell me about that kind of really unique relationship where when he passed and you officially had the baton, like, right? It was your show. What was that relationship like?
Yeah, I want to touch on this, but I also want to go back to that other previous question for just one second. Like in a second, we can go back to it. But there's something that came to mind I really want to share because this has been just such a big part of my life right now. That my mother and we had a nice relationship growing up. Like it was good.
Right.
I kind of always wanted to be closer to my mom, which is interesting. Like ask and you shall receive. And I was closer with my dad. And when my dad had his stroke, like my mom and I had to team up and bond, really, right? Like we had to step up to the plate. And
you had a shared mission.
Exactly. And by doing that, it ended up strengthening our relationship. And we ended up having so much fun working together. I mean, the amount of laughs when we were like even struggling so hard.
It took you out of that traditional mom-daughter role too, I would imagine.
Became more friends. It's such a good point. We exited that part because we had to look at each other like business partners, and because we were at that point.
I think that's an important point for us to pull the thread on, because I think sometimes when you meet people, I'll take us for example, like we met at an executive council, like there was like a woman executives thing in Florida, and I think that we've both gone through iterations of not only our professional life, but our personal lives. And I think having the capacity to not only meet people where they are in that season, but also grow along with them makes a relationship really stand the test of time. And thinking about you and your mom, I think about some conversations I've had with other guests where their parents weren't as flexible when they grew or when they evolved, and it created a lot of tension. Whether, I will speak for myself. When I decided to leave this job and like do my own thing, literally there was so much confusion. Do you know what I mean? And then there were people that were like, yeah, you can do whatever you want. So it's like, I love that she was so supportive. But do you find that as you you're going through your own metamorphosis and your roles are changing and you're trying different things, what qualities do you see in the people that have stuck by you and rolled with it versus people that were just uncomfortable with that much change and were sort of like, well, I don't, and it has more to do with them than you,
of
obviously.
Course. And it's great because that's why you have many different friendships and relationships because everybody feeds a different purpose of you. We're not just one.
I love that.
One way, right? As humans, we have all these little like tentacles, like kind of like
all these little bird's nests.
And we need all of these things to fill our personalities. And fill who we are. And so it's okay to have those friends because it's great. Like they'll support you in their own way, even though it might not seem supportive. But it's okay. Or you just say, okay, that's okay.
And I think we have to manage our expectations too of people. Or maybe have none. And let them, meet them where they are.
I know it is really interesting when you put like a little sticky in your mind on somebody, no expectations. It changes your whole relationship. And it opens up things. And something also for me, I've been getting clearer with expectations too. Having no expectations and clear expectations, which is really fascinating. Because once you set up those clear expectations, some people may call them boundaries. I call them expectations because then everybody's on the same page and we kind of know where we stand. And it's been very helpful in a lot of relationships that I have and I continue to have, especially with business. And because it's so easy to get so buddy with people. And before you know it, you're like, yay deep, and
that's a new level of closeness. Yay deep.
and you now have to like figure out some new or you have to have crucial conversations, right? So let's take away those crucial. I mean, we're going to always have crucial conversations, but let's take them away for right now, or reduce them, I should say, if we can set up more expectations in the front end and having open communication. I just had a great meeting with one of my staff members last night, actually. And I said, here's kind of my expectations of what's going on and what are yours? And she kind of shared with me hers. And I said, great. I think we can work with yours and what mine are. We can meet in the middle. And it was such a way to have a growth conversation because she's been with me for a while and I want to continue to have growth with her.
Yes.
And it was just like a check-in, thing. And it was really needed. And I'm glad we set those expectations.
Yeah. I think too, for me, I found an expectation is, so a lot of that similarity between expectations and boundaries have to do with the relationships, right? Like the roles we play with each other. I think for me, when I had a huge team, expectation setting kept everybody like on the same page, to your point. I think for me, as I get older, boundaries are more internal. Like, what am I going to accept and not accept in a relationship? And then if the party, crosses the line or violates those, not in like a bad way, then it's up to me what I decide to do. But an expectation is, here's what we've decided mutually for the good of the partnership or the collaboration or whatever. Like, maybe my boundary is punctuality. Like, I am always punctual because I respect people's time, and an expectation is that everybody else is going to show up on time. And then somebody else from a different culture is like, oh, if I say 6, I really mean 6:15. You know what I mean? It's just looser because it has less importance in their value system. Maybe it's more important for them to be kind than on time. So I feel like having really realistic conversations probably helps relationships, especially if, honestly, money's involved and business is involved. I think that's super important.
It is also interesting talking about money. So also growing up, we never talked about money.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that was true with your family. Right.
Yeah.
So,
but we felt it.
Yeah. And there's just a sense of like, you just don't air your laundry with other people. Right. And so it is interesting as we go into like this other stage of life. And I think maybe just this 2025 or this whatever year or the last couple of years, people.
Gosh, it's 2025. That's crazy.
It is. And but people like talk more about or openly about money. And I've started to like take that like stigma off of it and talk more openly. And money is just an exchange of a currency. Like that's it. That's all it is. It doesn't hold a lot of weight to it.
Yeah.
And once you remove that, and I mean, I'm not like having like gloating about it or anything, or whatever. But like normally I would say I wouldn't tell my friend like how much something had cost or something like that. And now I told her the other day, I was like, yeah, I spent on this and I'm just trying to figure out, whatever it is. But I never would have shared with her how much I spent on that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like you don't need to talk about all your finances with everybody, but just also taking down that level, it has deepened our friendship a little bit more.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good point. And where it trips us up, especially as women, is in the workplace when we are unsure about, are we being paid what we're worth? I know when I was younger, a coworker of mine, this is when I worked for IBM, he was leaving the company and I was super curious about how much he made because I just suspected that they made more than me, even though we were same qualified and I was serving like a different client and it worried me, right? And it was my first big job. Do you know what I mean? Like, and as an immigrant, I didn't know like what the rules were with asking this stuff. And so when he was leaving, and him and I talked about this just last year, we reconnected after a few years and I mentioned it to him. He's like, I had no idea. But literally we're having lunch and I just like spit it out. I was like, how much do you make? Because he was leaving the company. And he told me how much he was making at that time and what he was moving toward. And like my stomach dropped because it literally was about a $30,000 difference between what I was making and what he was making. And I was so upset. And anyway, it's a long story, but it really, I had to make a decision. And so I asked a few more people. I became courageous enough to ask people. I did a salary.com report on how much I was worth. I presented it to my leadership. I asked for more money because in the bell curve of how much I could be making, the lowest amount and the highest amount, I was in the 17th percentile given the work that I was doing in DC. And I asked them to at least make me whole. And they did not do that. I gave them 2 weeks to kind of figure something out. And They didn't. And, Maya Angelou always said, when people show you who they are, believe them. And I have no ill will towards them. They're amazing people. We still support each other. But my boundary, right? Like my personal, and so I put my resume out like the next day after the 2-week deadline had passed. I got a job in the mid 6 figures the next day. And so I say to people listening to this, that conversation about money and shame and hiding it sometimes does not serve us. And I think as businesswomen, and I'm a coach, now asking each other how much we charge, right? So that we can have benchmarks is super important.
Well, there you go, as a community even, right? You're working together as a community, as a coaching community.
Yes.
Like, let's lift each other up.
For sure.
I can tell you right now in the chiropractic industry, because chiros have tried to undermine. For
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So now, like, the reimbursements are so cheap. Like, you can go to the joint and get a chiropractic adjustment for $30 or something, I think.
I'll ask you where that is soon.
So, like, but it's like taking down the worth of chiropractors. They go to school to become medical doctors of the bones, right?
Yeah.
And they spend all this money and time into schooling, and then they're now going to charge $30 for something that they should have been charging $80.
It's like cannibalizing the whole system.
Yeah. And just because they're trying to undermine each other, not working as a community. And I've heard some upheaval from that industry because they're frustrated with each other. Like, why did you have to undercut me? Why can't we work together? Like, why can't we come together and if we just do that, then we would all thrive.
Love that.
And that's really what businesses should do.
Yeah.
Is come together to thrive together, because there's so much to go around.
And have conversations. I mean, if there's a huge discrepancy, we're not saying it's like equal pay, equal whatever, right? But definitely have a conversation. And if somebody's doing something remarkably different that is earning them a remarkably better return on investment, then why wouldn't we share what that is, whether it's a certification or whatever the thing is. I feel like there's a missed opportunity there, but connecting properly, taking down the stigma of talking about money, kind of is a really powerful tool.
Yeah, and it's about being vulnerable a little bit, and it opens up for conversation. It opens up for connection.
Take the rawness out of it. Yeah.
And it's okay
It is totally okay.
We all think we have to be the perfect person or know what we're doing. And that's it's okay to learn from each other. This is kind of what I wanted to actually talk about earlier, and this is perfect time now to talk about it too. It's like having mentors or guides in our life. I call them guides now, not even mentors. I call them mentors for a long time. I have a couple people to this day that still mentor me or guide me. I feel like they're just guiding me to the next place I'm supposed to be in life.
Yeah.
And I'm with business, but also personal too. And sometimes you outgrow them, and sometimes you continue with them. And it's not good, bad, or right. It's just great. This one was able to take you to this level and teach you all of this information. And now you're going to go on to the next person or the next thing. And these beautiful guides in life that just are really here to just bring you to your purpose and let you shine more in this world. And being aware of those guides is so powerful. And I mean, people might think spiritual guides, but I'm talking about people guides.
Yeah, like humans.
I learned so much, and just being open to learning, and you're going to continue to grow, right? It's the moment you stop learning, you die, I think I don't know, maybe that's not the right phrase or the quote.
The moment you stop growing, growing, you die. And I want to say too, guides don't have to be like a human that you see and touch in your community. Totally. Like a guide can be a person you follow. I don't want to say on social media, but definitely social media has shrunk the world so much that we literally feel like we know people that we've never met. And I think that if, they see you become some combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with, if you don't have these types of people in your life and you are struggling with, well, I don't have the money to join that networking group, whatever your barrier is to accessing it, I think that's a lame excuse. I think that you can curate a list of books, authors, poets, personalities like YouTube. You can curate your guide.
Yeah, I mean, you're a guide, right? Like, and like, you know, maybe they can't hire you as a coach individually right now, but they can listen to your podcast. And there's so much information.
And you give away so much for free that it's so valuable. I know I get so much from stuff. I get so much from other people's content.
It is interesting. One time I even used like Kathy Heller as one of my, so she's one of my guides in life. But one thing she said like 5 years ago when I was taking one of her courses, she was talking to like 800 people on Zoom. And I still to this day, I'm like, she told me.
Right.
And everybody's like, no, she told you and 700 or, you know, 799 other people. Like,
I remember when I did, in 2020, I did the Tony Robbins, Unleash the Power Within. It was 220,000 people around the world. It was like some 100 and something countries. And I still felt like that dude was talking to me.
Right.
Like I have a screenshot of, I don't know who took the screenshot, but I had cast it on TV. On our television at home, and I think my husband may have taken a screenshot, but it is literally me mesmerized by the TV and like Tony talking back. So it was this weird juxtaposition of seeing my face in the upper corner of the Zoom call with him talking, and I actually put it on my vision board because he said 3 things in that particular moment that really catapulted me to like a different way of thinking. And I think that's the juice that you're missing out on if you're not opening yourselves up to the possibility of amplification circles. And to say I don't have that in proximity is not an excuse that's palatable now. Because if you have a phone, which we all kind of do, if you don't have a phone, you've got a library with free resources. I still go to the library. I'm such a dork. I love the library. I go and I like right now in my nightstand has like 6 library books. They're all overdue. Sorry, library.
Well, now you don't get charged. Apparently, I heard. I was like, "What's the point of that?"
I don't know if we get charged, but I feel guilty enough about it where I'm like, I should put these back, but I want to finish them. But I'm just saying, like, there's so many resources to find these guides, and you don't have to network in person to network.
No, correct. I mean, yes.
I'm just saying. Anyway,
I know you mean yes. But I also am
it's beautiful.
I am a big person in connection and being in person with people. There's beauty into Zoom and beauty into online connection. And I've done like during 2020, 2021, whatever, all those years, I did a lot of Zoom online coaching things.
Zoom fatigue.
Yeah. And it's great, but there's nothing like being with somebody and then wanting to give them a hug because you've bonded on something and you're like, I can just hug you.
Yes.
You know, and share that really excitement with them.
Last year, I committed to I joined the local Chamber of Commerce here, and I committed to going to every event that interested me. And I did, and I wanted to throw up because sometimes it was like 3-4 times a week. But oh my gosh, one, my happiness level increased because I felt like I was really embedding into our community, probably for the first time since I moved to Florida. And 2, just walking into a room and seeing a couple of familiar faces. Trust me, for the first couple of months, I was like, oh my God, my worst nightmare. To come in like a wallflower and know nobody. But again, like a muscle, you keep at it and it makes sense. But I would say the connections, the richness of it, and forcing yourself to go outside of your comfort zone, outside of your status quo, really has paid back in mad dividends. You know what I mean?
On the other side of fear is growth.
Yeah.
And so even like you said, like a wallflower, even if you just go into the room where the buzz is happening, and even if you don't talk to anybody, your soul is going to be uplifted in a different way. It's going to tweak. You might feel a little overwhelmed. You might be like, oh my gosh, that was a lot going on there. But yet you're going to feel the energy of everybody.
Yeah. Tell us about Ripple.
Okay.
I know that was like a deep segue, but tell me how
I love it.
How you've kind of evolved from 22 years old, taking on the family business, working networking groups, having a couple of podcasts. Now you're tiptoeing into IT and sort of, right? Tell us.
And I always say, like, I'm the least techie person. My mom is more techie than me. Just letting you, like, everybody, like, she can fix a computer that, like, I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
I'm throwing up in my mouth right now. My husband, thank God, he's in tech, so he's my tech support.
Yeah, everybody needs one. I thank God I have my brother and my mom that are really techie. Yeah. But anyways, so networking. So, like, as a business owner, I was cold calling businesses, like doctors' offices, attorneys. You're just trying to get the word out there, but I was also trying to, like, be resourceful with my time, because, like, I had to work the front desk, I had to check patients in, I had to be in the office, I had to schedule, like, do all those things, those day-to-day operations.
I love that you're listing these out, because I think behind a success like this, there's a hustle.
Oh yeah.
And we can't always believe the real, or the REEL, the REAL. Yeah. Like, you just listing all of those. Like, I feel that in my soul. Because this morning I was, the cook, the dishwasher, the chauffeur, the dog walker, the social media manager, the podcaster. Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And so I had to do all those things. I had to get scripts. I had to call the doctor's offices. I had to figure out call and verify insurances. I had to do all those things. So I had to make sure, like, I was careful with the time I spent out of the office, and, to make it really worthwhile.
Yeah.
And when I was going to these doctor's offices and I was talking, like, cold calling, it's so hard to get through. Right?
Yeah.
It's so hard. So then I was going to these chamber events or things where people are a little bit more willing to help you, right? They want to network a little bit more together or willing to start a connection. And so I'd go to these things, and I started actually chamber leads. And I was like, I don't even know if I was like, it's 1 hour out of my day, like at lunch or whatever. I'll figure it out. I'll make it happen. I'll take the phone with me. So I had the phones forwarded to my cell phone. Oh my gosh, those days used to be so crazy.
Yeah.
And so I was like, if I had to step out, I could just step out real quick and then come back or whatever it may be. And so I would be in the chamber, leads, and I figured that would be a good, more intimate way to start connections. And so I did, and I'm so grateful. I met a personal injury attorney there that introduced me to a doctor, because once somebody likes you,
the ripple effect.
It's the ripple effect, you guys. And once, I always say, like, your friends are your best advertisements for you, right? Like, so once you become friends with somebody and connect with them, all they want to do is help you out. Yeah. And which we do with everybody.
And
now.
there's a reciprocation there too.
Yeah. And your generosity feeds somebody else's generosity. And so that's kind of how I started growing my business, is just kind of like being friends with somebody. And then they were like, let me introduce you to my friend, because it was also really hard to break into that industry a little bit too, because everybody was in the, like, good boys club or whatever. There was not many women business owners 13 years ago in the medical field. Like, very few female chiropractors, like 2 maybe personal injury attorneys that, like, female or whatever, like, very, very small amount that had their own firms. Maybe they worked for other firms, but that actually could make the decisions and everything. Very small. And it was hard to get in with the guys. The guys are older. They had their connections. They had their people that they worked with.
There's a bit of turf protection too.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, who's this new girl? What does she want? Like, is she ditzy? Is she just a marketer, right? Like, is she just going to go and leave the next day? Yeah. Like, is she actually going to be around?
Yeah.
And so I had to prove myself a little bit and everything. But once I did, people were like, okay, she's got some chops. Yeah. But we're going to tell her about our, send her to the next one. So that's really how I built my business. And so I was like, gosh, like, I'm so grateful for the community that believed in me. And this really, like, I would say hit me at my 10-year anniversary party so much, is like, I had a big outside party and did a whole thing, and I was so grateful for the people that really had supported me early on, and I really was give back for them, just like, let's have a fun time, let's throw some axes, let's, like, DJ a little bit, let's have some food trucks. We did a whole great thing. And then everybody at my party said to me, they were like, oh my gosh, I made the best connections. And I was like, what? Like, on a big scale like that, even, like, I was like, what do you mean? They're like, yeah, I met this person at your party. It was so fantastic. I've gotten like 5 leads from them, whatever it is. Like, are we now collaborating on that? Or we just became friends because we love, talking to each other. And I was like, this is really cool. To see, like, what I've just been doing naturally normally, for myself, And I'm like, on a bigger scale. I'm like, cool. And then as I've continued to grow my business through, connections and everything, I was like, okay, I'm getting overwhelmed a little bit with keeping everybody organized. And I know there's a lot of like programs out there. There's like Popple. There's
an app for that.
There's like so many.
Yeah.
And there's like LinkedIn and there's this and that. And like who wants another thing? And there's like the cam card scanner or something like that. But then like
I literally just bought one, the dot card.
Okay. So yeah. So there's like so many things that are coming out. And I was like, but what happens when I go to an event and I meet somebody? Or what happens when I want to do an introduction? Was doing all these introductions. I noticed I was spending like 10 minutes writing out the introduction because I'm writing like that person's bio, the other person's bio. One person wants an email, one person wants in a text. Then I'm in the text messages or I'm in the things. And I'm like,
and you're trying to extrapolate yourself.
I'm like, please get me out of here. And then like sometimes they don't, sometimes they do. And then I don't want to be too rude. I'm like, by the third time, I'm like, please take me out. I'm out. Like, I'm glad you guys are connected. I'm so happy for you. But like, but you know, like my phone is blowing up.
I'm living that right now. Yep.
Yeah. So that's when I was like, okay, I need to figure out some research on this. So that's when I started asking like other networkers, what are you using? What's happening? And no one had like, a lot of people said like Excel spreadsheets or, which I'm
saying that because I have one.
Okay. I am not an Excel spreadsheet person. I just want to like, that is the opposite
Neither
of me.
am I. I mean, it is clunky.
I don't even know how to do the margin things. I get frustrated with it. I'm like, what, the wraparound text?
How do you hide columns? How do I unhide them? Where'd they go? I'm 100% with you here. Yeah.
So I was like, there's got to be a better way.
Yes.
Once I started doing some research, I saw some other apps and things out there that I loved and I think are also good resources, but not exactly catered to what I was looking for. Or what I felt like other people are looking for also. So, and also I want people to connect and do this easier, but I want them to spend time on their business. Because as a business owner, yes, I love connecting and it's my favorite thing in the world.
It can suck your time dry though.
Yeah. And then like, you've spent so much time doing connections and making connections and, you know, all this
updating the connections.
Yeah. And like trying to remember everything. And then like your business is like, hi, you know, don't we want to make some money over here? Yes. Like,
seems very necessary.
Yeah, and it's doing things to grow your business, but at the same time, it's a lot. So I was like, there's got to be an easier way. So that's when I came up with Ripple, and because everything is a connection. Yeah. Every opportunity starts with a connection. And I love when people collaborate, and I think it's also who you know, not what you know, right? Like, because I didn't know anything in my industry when I started. Yeah. And it's just because I knew good people. Yeah. That helped me grow my
What's
business.
your hope for Ripple as it relates to the human, you know, with the app? And I'll rephrase that. A lot of times we have really good intentions about whatever app we're downloading, Trello, whatever it is. But what's your what's the best outcome for the humans that you connect so well with that this app will do for their life?
It bring ease in networking. Mm-hmm. Remember where you met somebody, make introductions easier, and then get off the app. It's kind of like Hinge in a way, like in dating, but for business. You know, get on the app to get off the app in a way. But it's not a social media app where people feel like they have to spend time.
I feel like that's a very important point.
It's more of like a CRM system. So like a software management program. And to just help you keep things more organized. And that's the difference between, I would say, my app and LinkedIn or Alignable or other programs out there, which are all fantastic. There's nothing wrong with them. But if you want to just connect with people and get introductions started and just spend 10 minutes or less in an app and just be able to respond to people, check networking events that are coming up, and then get out of there.
What's been the biggest surprise for you with it?
Ooh, that's a good question. Honestly, like how amazing the response is. And I know that kind of sounds crazy because I feel like I built something that it is a need for people. Yeah. But I like the excitement around it is beyond. Yeah. I
want to tell you that's a large part to you.
Oh, thank you.
That's a large part to because I downloaded it a couple months ago when you first sent it out, and it was still in beta. And I recently updated it with my picture and stuff, and then I immediately saw a few people that I knew, but I didn't go back in. You know, you get busy. But now that you're talking about it, I'm like, because it is overwhelming. Remember I told you I went to like 3-4 events a week? And so I have this stack of business cards. Ugh. Yeah.
And the thing is, like, and I say that because, like, I did too. Yeah. And then I was just throwing them away. Oh,
man.
And
I want to go home now and, like,
yeah. So, like,
check it out.
And it's just a muscle for this. Like, I just want people to know that, like, this app is a muscle. So it's retraining your brain. Like, we retrained our brain to start to go into Instagram or Facebook and spend more time there. I'm not saying spend time. I'm just saying make it a daily habit to check it at least once a day.
Yeah.
Go on to Ripple. Check what events are happening, respond to your contacts, and then you can do it tomorrow even more. You know, you don't have to spend all day on it.
I love that.
Chatting back and forth, because you can chat back and forth with people. And also, yes, you might see all the members on there, but it's not to cold call members. So if you haven't met somebody in person or already talked with them or met them at some point, don't just reach out to somebody.
Don't spam.
Yeah.
Basically, don't spam.
You know, spam people on LinkedIn or whatever you want to do. Like, that's okay. But this is more of just like kind of keeping
relationship builder.
Yeah, keeping your contacts at ease. And once more people are on Ripple, like once we get like,
oh yeah, you're gonna get this momentum that's gonna be wild.
It's gonna make it so much easier though to be like when like if let's say we just talked today and I was like, let's connect more, and we could just say connect with you on Ripple, then I know like also the time that we met and everything like that, and I have all your information. So then if I want to send your information to somebody else, I can easily.
You're gonna die laughing. I feel like this app is beyond the quo. It's beyond the status quo. It's approved.
That was amazing.
So there are 3 things I like to talk about. 3 things, kind of the pillars for this podcast. One is redefining success. The other one is living authentically. And the other one is leading courageously. And I feel like people don't know I do this, but threaded throughout every episode are these 3 things, right? And I want to kind of do a quick recap in terms of just leading courageously. I think you have done that, just overcoming whatever stereotypes they had about your age and being a young female and having imposter syndrome and wearing all the hats in the world and putting more hats on. I think that when it comes to redefining success, I really appreciate you sharing the journey, because I think sometimes people see us in discrete periods of time. So maybe we've laid low a building and then suddenly we pop up and it's like, oh my God, I'm doing this great thing. And they're like, well, what happened to the other thing? And I think that allowing people the room to redefine and reinvent themselves is so powerful, because as humans, it is our right to want more and better for ourselves. And so redefining who you are in the world with boundaries and expectations, I think is super powerful. And I think that this, it's an app, sure. But I think that in terms of living a little bit more authentically, we all want deeper connection. We all want more meaningful relationships. I think, when we started this conversation with the loneliness epidemic is what they're calling it. And I know I've got teenagers, and me and my mom friends, we really talk a lot about our teens' mental wellness and how we feel like we're parenting them, but also parenting each other, and like trying to figure out in spaces that we're not comfortable how to do this. And so I love the idea of just breaching some of these, having a mindset shift around, I'm not a technical person. You don't actually need to be tech savvy to appreciate the ease, which I love that word you used, of something that's designed to get you quicker to your goal. And it doesn't always have to be monetary, So I think I want to thank you for sharing so openly and honestly. That was amazing.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, you just summarized that so beautifully. Like from the beginning to the end, like carrying you in my pocket. Plus, like I just love you.
Listen, so there are like 7 people I want to tuck in my pocket. Let's stay on this for 1 minute, and then I'm just checking the time here. I love when other people introduce me, people that care about me introduce me. And obviously I care about you, so I will introduce you the way I see you. Because sometimes we're so hard on ourselves, right? But isn't it the best feeling when at some of these events, and I'll give a shout out to Dan and Michael Nathanson, who introduced me, and I'm like, who are you talking about? But I feel like I get the sense that you also do that for people. But how can we encourage more of that, introducing people that you love and admire and you love what they're doing in the world, like that generosity of spirit? Because I don't know that we do that enough of that.
Oh my gosh.
I want to make a commitment now to do more of that. I do it, but I feel like, oh my God, it would be so great to do more of it.
I think even just doing it with one person a day.
Yeah.
Like start small.
Yeah.
And just like one person, just share with one person how much you love another person.
Yeah.
And because
we're starting a new Ripple.
Yeah.
Right?
But just start small, like small little goals, right?
Yeah.
And committing to something small. And then once it's becoming a new habit, right? Or being grateful for one thing, right?
Yeah.
A day even.
Yeah.
Is like just such a...
And reach out and tell the person. Like, don't just hoard that goodness.
Yeah. I mean, tell that person how much you love them.
Yeah.
Or share with somebody else. Like, oh my gosh, I just love this person so much. You know, because you're putting that energy out into the world.
Yeah.
And that's all it is.
I love it. How can people find you?
Okay. You can find me on Instagram. I'm very active on there at arielle.leavitt. Also, you can email me at Arielle Leavitt, Arielle the Connector at gmail.com. Yep. I know. Or just, message me, you'll
Tell them how to get Ripple.
Oh yeah. And download Ripple app on the Play Store or iOS store, the Apple Store. Download it under Ripple Networking. So you'll find it there. There's a lot of ripples. There's like Ripple Coin, Ripple this, Ripple that, whatever.
This Ripple is spelled Ripple.
Yeah, it's
okay.
Your normal Ripple, and it's networking, and it will pull it right up. It's a blue, white, and yellow icon.
Love it.
Like a little like starburst.
I love it.
And because it's little people rippling, and that's what it like is kind of how we kind of came up with that. And it's been so much fun just playing with stuff. And I tell people just play, like. Yeah. Whatever it may be, you're
not going to break it.
No. And I've just been having so much fun playing with Ripple that like I'm having more fun with that than whatever the outcome may be. And I am just excited that like I get to play in this space. And that's really when movement happens.
I'm very like visual. And so I hope maybe you have done it, like do a go live and just like, meet somebody and then show what you do like right after you meeting them, like little hacks, I think would be like super cool. But anyway, I digress. I'm going into my marketing background.
No,
anyway,
I am all for this. I'm here. Like, give it to me. What
as
else
a user.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you so much, and this has been amazing.
Thank you.
To all our listeners, thank you for tuning in to this inspiring episode of Beyond the Quo. I'm so excited for your journey and looking forward to all the things you're going to do. If you love this episode, please share it with someone. Don't forget to subscribe and like us. And for more transformative conversations, another thing you can do, I recently launched the Rising Beyond Power Collective. And this is specifically for women of color leaders to find space to connect and grow across the world. And so far we have just under 100 members in less than 60 days. And so we are excited to start the ripple effect there, kind of, riffing on one of your words, because I think it's necessary for us to just be able to have conversations that will elevate us in a safe environment, but also provide the necessary real talk that we need to move forward for certain things. And so anyway, join us next week for another episode of Beyond the Quo.